So our show is all about, well, fuck ups and failures, and we basically get people to
come to the right place.
Well, we've had enough, people share. This is like where you can get it off your chest about something you've made a mistake and what you learned from it. So, do you have any that you've made in what you do?
I've got millions. I mean, people worry a lot. Like I've been fired like a lot of times, like maybe 4 or 5 times. And normally it's nothing like as personal as people think. Probably one of my biggest failings. I was working on a campaign for Nokia to launch a music service. So this was probably 2007. And we'd sort of procured the rights to like Kylie Minogue's new album that was going to be exclusively available. And we spent probably £15 million on media and technology and IP. And I think 37 people downloaded the particular app that we were trying to push at the time. So on a sort of what's it called, CPO, on a sort of cost per acquisition basis, we could have sort of arranged like a private, living room performance of Kylie Minogue for every single person that wanted it. I would say, like, I'm very happy to accept when I've been an idiot. In this particular case, I wasn't an idiot. I actually did tell the client quite a lot of times, look, this isn't really how it's going to work. Most people who see this TV ad are not going to be able to download this because they don't have the right type of Nokia handset. But it's a good example, really, I think, of understanding quite how big companies work and how their finance works. And, someone had made the business case and they couldn't sort of accept it wasn't going to work. But yeah, I make mistakes all the time. The most important thing is to not do the same mistake twice. The most important thing is to kind of really, understand what you learn about yourself and the world every time you do it. But yeah, I'm quite idiotic, and I make quite a lot of mistakes.
I'd love to have been a fly on the wall when you had to have that ROI discussion about 15 million for 37 downloads.
You'd have been better off with bags of £10,000, just giving them to people walking in the street and asking them to download the app, and you'd have got a better return on that activity.
It's completely true, and yeah, it just goes to show, accountability is a good thing.
It reminds me of the era when the internet first came out, like not when it first came out, but when people started to use it, and there was the .com boom, and I was going into pitches, and it was right at the beginning of my career, and people were saying, so what we're going to do is we're going to build a website, and potentially 60 billion or however many billion people can come and land on it, and I kept thinking, this is all this money is going to this. This just doesn't make any sense. Aren't they going to have to find it first? Which sounds very similar to your app scenario.
I think we do not have simple jobs by any means, but I think quite often we make them a lot more complicated than they need to be. And I think you're sort of thinking where you're saying, only this many people might actually see it, so it's unrealistic to expect that. Or, if you were a normal human being, how would you respond to this? I actually think taking a bit of a step back, relaxing a little bit and trying to approach these things from a common sense perspective is quite often the best way to succeed. I'm doing a lot of work with a car company at the moment where they're figuring out that almost all of their search spend is going on terms that probably people would have ended up on the website without clicking. So all you're doing is taking people that are already very interested and sort of taking credit for making them, become interested, even though clearly they already were. And often you have these cultures of specialisms and sort of expertise and spreadsheets, and people can sit in meetings and talk about numbers and ratios, and everyone has the goal of making that number as big as it can be. And I think it's really important to just take a step back. Maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe there's something much more fundamental that we can solve instead.